Okay, this is the second part to multiplying polynomials. That was the front side. We're going to go ahead and move on to the back side. There are quite a bit of problems, and so I'm going to try to move a little bit quicker. Sorry, my iPad's been acting really weird, so you're going to see it a little bit off center. And unfortunately, unfortunately, it just kind of is what it is. So sometimes I'm going to have to pause the video just so I can kind of get it back to looking normal like this. All right, so again, you're going to go ahead and press pause on the video whenever you need to. I'm just going to go ahead and move on and pretend that you already did that. We're going to go ahead and jump into this. For these, we're just going to go ahead and distribute using the rules that we learned yesterday. Now, I'm going to have 4x times x squared. Remember, I am multiplying here, so therefore that x has an imaginary 1 on it. And so I'm going to add the exponents, and you're going to end up with 4x cubed. I'm going to take the 4x and multiply it by the 3x. The 4 times 3 is going to give me a positive 12. The x times x, because we're adding the exponents, that's 1x with another x, that's going to give me an x squared. And then the 4x times 5, the 4 times 5 gives me a positive 20. And since there's only one x, I'm going to stay with 1x, and that's my final answer. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. Same concept. I'm going to take the negative 2x here. I'm just going to go ahead and distribute that. And I just realized this should have been done with highlighter. So we're just going to go ahead and highlight this. Guys, all over here, can you go ahead and highlight those as well? Sorry about that. We're going to go ahead and multiply these. Negative 2x times 3x squared. Negative 2 times 3 is going to give me a negative 6. And then the x times the x squared, again, we're going to add one exponent to two exponents. That gives me 3 exponents put together. We're going to continue distributing that negative 2x all the way through. So this is going to go right here. Negative 2 times 5 gives me a negative 10. The x to the first with the x to the first is going to give me an x squared. And because this one doesn't have a y, but this one does, then I only have one y total. So I'm just going to write it as x squared y. And then on the last one, we're going to take that negative 2x. We're going to distribute it all the way over here. Negative 2 times 2, that's going to give me a negative 4. I have an x over here. I don't have any x's over here, so I'm going to be left with just one of those x's. And because I don't have any y's over here, but I do have a y, two y's here, I'm going to leave it as y squared. And that takes care of that. All right, on the next one, we're going to go ahead and distribute as well. Let's just kind of remind you how these work. We're going to take this x. We're basically just going to distribute this x to the other side until I'm done. So I'm going to take that x times x. That's going to give me an x squared. I'm not done distributing the x. So I'm going to go x times 4, and that's going to give me 4x. I am done distributing the x, but I'm not done distributing overall because I still can distribute the 2. So let me go ahead and take that 2 and distribute it. I'm going to go 2 times x. That's going to give me a 2x. And I'm not done distributing the 2, so I'm going to go ahead and go 2 times 4. That's going to give me a positive 8. Once I'm done here, I'm just going to go ahead and combine like terms. There are no other x squareds, but there are these x's here. Remember, we're adding. When we're adding variables, we do not add the exponents, okay? So we're just going to say 4x's plus 2x's. That's just going to give me 6x's. Do not write 6x squared. That would be if you were multiplying an x with an x. That's when you get an x squared, okay? But when you're adding, you just combine stuff and put them together. Everything else I'm just going to drop. So this becomes x squared plus 6x plus 8, and that is my final answer. So that's one way you could do it. The other way that I have taught you how to do these type of problems when you have a binomial times a binomial is to use the FOIL method. I'm going to go ahead and introduce it again, even though we've done it in class, but FOIL. Remember that the FOIL method basically means you need to multiply the first two. So if I am looking at the different parentheses, I'm going to take the first one from this parentheses, and I'm going to take the first one from this parentheses, and I'm going to multiply those two together. So let me go ahead and do that in green. F stands for the first two. You're going to take the 3x, multiply it with the 2x. That's going to give you a 6x squared. And I'm done with my F. The O stands for the outer two. So if I were to look at these ones are on the outside, and these ones are on the inside. So you have the inside ones and you have the outside ones. Outer 2 means I'm going to multiply the ones on the outside. So I'm going to take that 3x and I'm going to multiply it by the -5. And what you get is a -5x. And that takes care of the outer 2. The next I stands for inner 2. We just showed you which ones those inside ones. Those are the ones like are really hugged towards the middle. That would be the 4 and the 2x. 4 times 2x, I'm going to get a positive 8x. So that I stood for the inner 2. And then the L stands for the last 2. The last 2 are exactly what you would think it would be. It would be the last one from each one. So that'd be the 4 times the -5, and that gives me a -20. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those terms. That's going to give me a -5x plus 8x. I can combine in the middle. That's going to give me a positive 3x. And I don't have any other x squared, so I'm just going to go ahead and bring that down. And I'm going to go ahead and bring down the -20, and we're done with that. I think for the most part, most students don't enjoy the FOIL method too much. I do want you to understand, though, the FOIL method, look at the arrows on the regular method, and then look at the arrows on the FOIL method. Those arrows are the exact same arrows as these ones. So what I'm trying to say is it's the exact same thing. It's just that, some teachers teach FOIL because, students won't remember it. For me, I just say just distribute and you should be fine. So that's the way I'm going to roll with the rest of the way. Let me go ahead and just distribute what I need to distribute. I know on the first one, I need to distribute the 3a to the other side. So that's going to be a 3a times a 5a. That's going to give me 15a squared. And then I'm not done distributing the a, so I'm going to go 3a times -2. 3 times -2 is going to give me a -6. And I don't have any other a's, and I don't have any other b's, so I'm just going to write it as -6ab. Okay. Done with the distribution of the 3a. Now I'm going to move on to the -4b. -4b times 5a. -4 times 5 is going to be a -20. And then because I have a B and an A, I'm going to write it as AB just so it makes it a little bit easier for me to understand, like, oh, I got to go ahead and combine those two. And it looks like I'm running out of a space, so let me go ahead and move this a little bit. There we go. And I'm not done distributing, so let me go ahead and go -4b times -2b. That's going to give me a positive 8b squared. And it looks like I can combine these guys because these have the exact same variables along with it. So I'm going to drop the 15a squared. -6 minus 20, that's going to be a -26ab, and then a plus 8b squared. The advantage to distributing as opposed to foiling is that it'll work no matter the case. So for example, FOIL only does 4 things, but I know when I do my arrows here, I need 6 things to happen. So FOIL doesn't work if you have more than 2 things. And that's why I prefer just to distribute, okay? So let me go ahead and distribute that 2x. I'm going to take that 2x, multiply it here. 2x's times an x squared. I got 1x on the left and another 2x's on the right. That's going to give me 2x cubed. 2x times 5x, that's going to be 2 times 5 is 10. X times x is x squared. 2x times -1, that's going to be a -2x. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute. Now that I'm done distributing the 2x, I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 3. So that's going to be 3 times x squared is a 3x squared. 3 times 5x, that's going to give me a plus 15x. And then 3 times -1, that's going to give me a -3. As far as distributing is concerned, I am done with the distribution. Now I'm going to combine like terms. I don't see any other x cubed, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop that 2x cubed. I do see x squared, so there's 10x squareds here, and I see 3x squareds here. When I put those together, that's going to be 13x squareds. The next one down is the x's, so I see -2x, and I see a positive 15x. When I put those together, it's going to be a plus 13x. And as far as the ones are concerned, the only thing I see is a -3, and so we're going to stop right there. All right, and then on this one, we're going to go ahead and distribute just like we did last time. Let me go ahead and take that 5x. Distribute it here, 5x times x squared. That's going to give me 5x to the third power because I have 1x on the left and then 2x's on the right. I'm going to distribute it here, and I'm going to get 5 times 3. That's a positive 15. X times x is going to give me the x squared. 5x times negative 1. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. And because there's only one x, I'm going to write negative 5x. I'm done distributing the 5x. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the 2. Take that 2, distribute it. 2 times x squared, that's going to give me a 2x squared. 2 times 3x, 2 times 3 is 6, so that's a plus 6, and I still have the x. 2 times negative 1, that's going to give me a negative 2. And I'm done distributing. I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. I'm going to start with the highest exponent, which in this case is going to be the 5x cubed. I don't see any other x cubed, so I'm just going to bring it down. Now that I'm done with the x cubes, I'm going to go down a step and talk about the x squareds. I see 15x squareds here, and I see another 2x squareds here, so I'm going to add those. That should be 17x squareds. I'm going to move down a step from x squared to x's. I see negative 5x here and a plus 6x there. Negative 5 plus 6 is positive 1. And since I have an x, I'm going to write positive 1x. But I'm not going to write 1x because I can just write x. And the 1 is implied. All right. And then I'm just going to bring down the minus 2. And that takes care of that problem right there. All right. Again, my iPad, my iPad is acting really weird, but this is going to be the end of the notes. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and copy that down. I want you to notice that when we do these problems, these are very, very similar. It's just that the signs are changing. I got a plus, plus, I got a minus, minus, and I got a plus, minus. In the interest of trying to make this a shorter video, I'm going to run through this kind of quickly just because at this point you should be pretty good with the distribution of those things. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and distribute. 3x times 3x, that's going to give me 9x squared. 3x times 4, that's going to give me a plus 12x. 4 times 3x, that's going to give me a plus 12x. And then 4 times 4, that's going to give me a plus 16. Notice that the ones in the middle I can combine. That's going to give me a 9x squared plus 24x plus 16. All right, let's move on to the next one, see what that one looks like. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 3x. 3x times 3x is still 9x squared. 3x times negative 4 is a negative 12x. Negative 4 times 3x, that's going to give me a negative 12x. And then negative 4 times negative 4, that's going to give me a positive 16. Just like last time, I can combine the ones in the middle. Unlike last time, though, when I combine negative 12x with negative 12x, that gives me a negative 24x plus 16. Take a look at this. These answers are very similar. The only difference is this one has a positive 24x, and this one has a negative 24x, and that makes sense as these symbols were positive and these symbols were negative. So when I move over to the next one, and I look at and I see that one is positive and one is negative, try to figure out to yourself, like, what do you think is going to happen to those terms in the middle? Okay, and let's just try to find out right now to see if your guess is correct. I'm going to go ahead and distribute. 3x times 3x is still 9x squared. 3x times negative 4 is again negative 12x. I'm going to go ahead and start distributing the 4. 4 times 3x is a positive 12x. And then 4 times negative 4 is a negative 16. Check out these in the middle. I got a negative 12x and a positive 12x. These are actually going to cancel each other out. So what I'm left with is a 9x squared, nothing in the middle, and then a minus 16. I'm sure a lot of you guys did think like, yeah, those are going to cancel. But maybe what you didn't realize was going to happen is check out that last number. It was a positive 16. It was a positive 16. But now that thing changed to a negative. So that's really important for you to know. Why are we doing this? Well, because when we're multiplying binomials, a lot of times you're going to multiply the same binomial times itself. Like you're going to get something plus something, and then you're at times the exact same thing. So here, when they say a plus b squared, what they mean is a plus b times a plus b. What I'm saying is you're going to run into this situation a lot when you're multiplying two binomials and they're the exact same ones. And on the next one, same thing. Like you're going to run into this situation a lot when you're going to go a minus b times a minus b. It's going to be two binomials, but they're going to be subtracted to each other. So it's very important that we understand these shortcuts and how they're going to work. So let's just go ahead and distribute these. I'm not going to draw in all the arrows. Well, I'll draw them in really quick. I'm still going to do this. Okay, but I'm going to do it really fast just because I know we've been doing a lot of these. So a times a is a squared. A times b is ab. B times a is still ab. And then b times b gives me b squared. Okay, so all I did was I pretty much foiled or distributed, right? And that's how I got these answers here. But more importantly, these, when I do this, this is going to be a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. What I'm trying to say is every single time that you have some quantity that's being squared with a plus in the middle like this, the shortcut is to just do this. And we'll talk about what that means as we do the examples. It is a little bit weird the first few times we do it, but the more we practice it, the more natural it will become, okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with this one. We're going to go ahead and distribute, and find out what I get. I'm going to do it quickly, though, so I'm going to get a squared minus ab. The next one is going to be another minus ab. And then negative b times negative b gives me a positive b squared. Just like last time, I can combine the two terms in the middle. But unlike last time, this is going to be a squared. And because I have a negative ab and another negative ab, I'm going to have minus 2ab's. But I still have that plus b squared. That is to say, every single time that I see something that looks like this, I can shortcut it to look like something like this. And then on the last one, they already kind of spread it out for me. So I'm going to go ahead and just FOIL this thing out. A times a is a squared. A times negative b is negative ab. B times a is positive ab. And then b times negative b is going to give me a negative b squared. If I look at these two in the middle, I'm going to notice, yeah, these guys cancel out. And all I'm left with is an a squared minus b squared, which means every single time I have a positive and a negative, then the middle terms will cancel each other out. And it just looks like a squared minus b squared. And hopefully you're starting to notice like, oh, that's probably what happened there, which is exactly what happened there. Okay, so let's show you exactly how these shortcuts work. Again, the process is going to be a little bit weird. And I do it a little bit weird myself just because I like to, like, especially like on this, right? I like to do this part and this part, like the I know what it's going to look like at the end or in the beginning, and I know what it's going to look like at the end. And I save the middle part for the last piece of the puzzle just because it's the weird one, okay? So let's take a look at this. There we go. Let's take a look at this and see how we're going to attack this. First of all, I want you to notice that this one looks like the yellow shortcut. It has the same thing. The other thing I want you to notice is when I say A, really what I mean is the first thing, okay? When I say B, really what I mean is the second part. So when I do this shortcut, and instead of doing all my arrows, I'm going to jump straight to this, straight to my answer, okay? According to this, the first part is going to be that a, I need to square it. I need to take this and multiply it by itself. That means I need to take x and multiply it by x. That's the first part times the first part. That's what this thing is telling me right here. If I want the first part, I got to square the first part. So that's x times x. I know that x times x is x squared. I am done with this part because I did a times a, or in my case, x times x. I'm done with this part. I'm going to jump towards the end. And at the end, it says I need to go b squared, which means I need to go b times b, which means I need to do 7 times 7. That's my second part times my second part. 7 times 7 is just 49. Do not write 49 squared. That's one mistake I've been seeing students do. 7 times 7 is just 49. So right now on my shortcut, I already did the first part and I already did the last part. Now, to do the middle part, sorry, I just realized that happened. To do the middle part, that's telling me I need to go my first part times my second part, and then multiply it by 2. Again, I'll say that one more time. I need to take my first part, multiply it by my second part, and then multiply it by 2, put a plus sign in front. First part, second part, multiply it by 2. First part is x, second part is 7. So I'm going to go x times 7 is 7x. And then I need to multiply that 7x by 2. 7x times 2 is 14x. So I'm going to write plus 14x plus 49, and I'm done. That's it. Shortcut's done. And I know you're looking at that and going, what the heck just happened? Like, that was really weird, which I agree, and you're going to have to practice that a couple times in order for us to really understand how to do this. So let's try it again. This time I'm going to do it with this one. Take a look at this, and I'm noticing that, oh, there's a minus sign in between. That's shortcut number 2, the pink one. What does shortcut number 2 says? It's still going to start off the same. I'm going to take my first part, and I got to go first part times first part. At the end, I'm going to go second part times second part. In the middle, I'm going to go first part times my second part, and then I need to go double it and make sure I put a minus sign. So let's go through that thing. Let's see. I need to start off with the first part times the first part. That's going to be an x times x, which is just x squared. This first part is done. Let's do the last part, because the last part's easy. I need to go last part times last part here. Last part, that's a 7 times 7, which is going to be a 49. It's going to end with a 49. I also want you to notice it ends with a plus 49, so I'm going to go ahead and write plus 49. Okay, the middle part is the weird part. The middle part, I got to go first part times second part, and I need to double it up. Okay? First part, x, times the second part, 7. X times 7 is 7x. And then I need to double it. 7x times 2, that's 14x. But because I have the minus symbol, that means I need the minus symbol here. And that middle term is going to be a negative. That's exactly why I got that negative on that middle one. Okay? And I'm done. Okay, let's move on to the next one. On this one, I have a plus and a minus. That's my favorite one. When I get a plus and a minus, that's my favorite one because it's really fast. This just means you need to take your first part, square it. You need to take your second part, square it. And then you just got to put a minus sign in between and you are done. So first part, square it. That's going to be an x times x, which is x squared. Second part, square it. That's going to be a 7 times 7, which is 49. And then you just got to make sure you put a minus in between, and we are done. Now, I know the question is going to be, can't I just FOIL it out? Absolutely, you can still just FOIL it out. You can go x times x times negative 7, 7 times x, 7 times negative 7, right? You can still do that. You're going to end up with the exact same answer. But my question is, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Let me explain to you why I wouldn't do that. Take a look at this example right here. Let's say I got this. Now, if you were to do it your way, right, the regular way, you would go 2x times 2x and get an answer. 2x times negative 5 and get an answer. 5 times 2x and get an answer. 5 times negative 5 and get an answer. Once you write all those answers down, then you would have to combine like terms. So let's pretend you go through that system and combine like terms, and finally, you would be done. That's great. But if I do it, I know the shortcuts. So check this out. Because I have a plus and a minus, let's go ahead and get started on this problem, shall we? I know it's going to be 2x times 2x, which is 4x squared. And then I know it's going to be 5 times 5, which is 25. And I'm going to put a minus sign in between. And guess what, guys? I'm done. That's it. Like, it's so much faster if you know the shortcuts. And you don't have to worry about arrow all over the place and combining like terms correctly if you're doing it the shortcut way. Okay, so let's try it on this one. Oh, gosh, look at that. I didn't even mean to do that. But let's go ahead and try it on this one where it says the 2x plus 5. This is not going to be this one, right? Because this only has a plus. So it's actually going to be this one. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit faster this time. This is going to be my first part times my first part. So that's going to be a 2x times a 2x, which is 4x squared. At the end, it's going to go 5 times 5, which is a 25. In the middle is the weird one. That's where you got to take your first part, multiply it by your second part. 2x times 5 is 10x. But then you got to double it. 10x times 2 is 20x. And because it's a plus sign in the middle, then I'm going to go plus and we're done. Let's try it again because I think hopefully you're starting to get the hang of it. This is going to be shortcut number 2. Shortcut number 2 looks like this. It's kind of the same thing though. You're still going to go first part times first part. That's a 3x times a 3x, which is a 9x squared. That's how it's going to start. The way it's going to end is with the second part times the second part. So 7 times 7, that's going to be a 49. And the one in the middle is the weird one. That's where you're going to take the first part, multiply it by the second part. 3x times 7 is 21x. And then you got to go times 2. 21x times 2 is going to be 42x. Now you just have to remember that because I have that minus symbol, then the first one is minus, but the second one is still a plus. And we are done with that one. And then for the last one, I noticed like, oh man, this is going to be great because I have a plus and a minus and they're the same thing, which means it's going to be this one. I just got to go first part times first part. That's going to be an x times x, which is an x squared. Then I got to go second part times second part, which is a 4 times 4, which is going to be 16. And then remember to put a minus in between, and that's it. All right, hopefully those shortcuts made sense. That's the end of the notes for today. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to ask.